going to need for the restorative yoga course that I'm teaching, and some alternatives to those items. So the first one that's really easy to find an alternative for is a yoga strap. The ones that we use in a yoga class have some sort of buckle, usually it's metal or plastic, and that way you can easily make a loop in it. But if you want to save money and just use something you have around the house, you could use a bathrobe tie, an old karate belt, or even just a scarf. If you want to go ahead and buy one, they're not very expensive. We sell them at the studio. This is an 8-foot one. I recommend at least 6 feet, but 8 feet is really nice, especially if you're tall. All right, next you'll also need 2 yoga blocks. These are just some simple foam ones. We use them to place underneath the bolster, underneath the knees, head, all sorts of things. And you can purchase cork ones. They're a little bit more expensive, or less expensive. You can purchase foam ones. Either is going to work just fine. And the cork will just be a little bit more durable. You can also figure out some sort of alternative, such as a stack of hardcover books. Grab a little bit of painter's tape, or maybe a lot of painter's tape, so some kind of tape that won't ruin the books, and then you can secure them together so they don't slide around. You'll probably want quite a bit of tape. And you'll want to find 2 stacks of books that's pretty close to the same height. So tape that up a bunch, and you've got 2 blocks without spending any money. Or you could go to a grocery store, like especially places like Costco, and find like a bulk box of something. So these are granola bars. They're kind of the almost perfect size for a yoga block. Pretty sturdy cardboard. Something like that could work really well as well. And if you're hungry in the middle of practice, you can have a snack. Blankets. You want something that is thick and sturdy. So like a really fluffy comforter is not going to work very well. You want something more this kind of consistency. And if you don't have those sorts of blankets, then you could use some nice thick towels. This one's a bit longer. This one is a little bit more cylindrical. This one is quite rectangular. Either of those shapes will work. They just kind of work a little bit better or worse depending on your proportions. You want the bolster to be at least as long as from about your, just below your navel, just above the top of your head. So for me, this bolster is maybe just a little bit short, but it's almost right. And this one is plenty long. It's better for it to be too long than too short. So I'm going to show an alternative way to make a bolster. This is probably my favorite way. So I've got 3 thick blankets here, and underneath it I have 2 scarves. And I'm going to go ahead and roll up the blankets into a nice, tight, nice and neat roll. Don't want it to be lumpy. Then you just take the scarves and make a nice tie around that. Make sure they're nice and secure so they'll actually hold it together. And then you've got a bolster without spending much money. Again, the type of blankets you want here are pretty thick blankets. You don't want something that's really floppy or too cushy. But there you go. You have a nice, smooth, rounded bolster that will work very well for restorative poses. It should have some nice weight to it, and it shouldn't be like too bendy or floppy. It should have a nice structure. Wool blankets work really well for this. Another alternative is to find some kind of cylindrical sack. For example, you could take a laundry bag and just sew up one side of it so it's narrower, or an old bag from a tent, something like that, and then just in the top of it, stuff some blankets or old towels. Try to make it not too lumpy. But you need, again, a couple of blankets or a full of really thick towels, and just get it as even as possible. And so, I would keep stuffing that all the way to the top until I've got a nice cylinder there. One last option for alternative to a bolster is to take a couch cushion like this. This one is pretty nice and thick, again, not too floppy. And you could just use it as is. It won't be quite perfect and have that rounded shape for some poses, but for other poses it'll work quite well. Or you could take that couch cushion and use some ties, ropes, or scarves to kind of fold it in half and make a bolster-like shape out of it.
To the comfy props, you'll want to create a nice environment if you're practicing at home. So have a place maybe near a wall where you have some candles or plants nearby, something that helps you relax. Dim lighting can be really nice, or you could use an eye mask or an eye pillow, and try to make it as quiet as possible, or even find some soothing music that really helps you unwind.